A good day to you all, brothers and sisters. I hope you are all doing well today. What I'm going to do today is I need to answer this question. There's some people who have been asking this question, and it's one of the most asked questions when it comes to Christians. Most Christians do ask these questions. I'm not going to take much time. I'm just going to give you a summary of what I believe or what I see in the scriptures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a short summary and trying to answer these questions. So I know that most of us, we did some lessons regarding this question, and so just bear with me. Maybe you may get one or two things about this question. So the question is, most people ask this question. They say, if Jesus was 100% human, does that mean he inherited the fallen nature of Adam? This is the question. Let me repeat the question. The question is, if Jesus was 100% human, does that mean he inherited the fallen nature of Adam? This is the question. So the answer cannot be yes or no. If you say yes, you need to explain what do you mean by yes. And if you say no, you need also to explain what do you mean by no. Are you getting the point? It's like just to remember that lesson that we did, which was entitled, "Is Jesus God?" The answer was not yes or no, because we explained that if we say yes, we are saying that Christ possesses the very nature of God. He is fully divine. He's not a lesser God. He's fully God. For all the fullness of the Godhead dwells in him bodily. And also it's not yes because he is not the ultimate source of all things. He is not God the Father in that sense. So in other words, the same applies here. So the question cannot be yes or no. If you say yes, you need to explain. If you say no, you also need to explain your answer. So what we need to do today is, let me just explain this point. We know that a person is made up of two aspects. It's made up of it's made up of the physical part of him and also the spiritual part of him. The physical part of him, it composes all its body. It is composed of all the organs, and also the spiritual part of a person, it is the spirit. We know this from the book of Genesis, Ecclesiastes, and James. All over the Bible it is mentioned that God created man out of the dust of the earth, and he breathed in his nostrils the breath of life. And also James says that a body without a spirit is dead, which means there is a body and there is a spirit. And even according to the book of Ecclesiastes, it said that when a person dies, the body goes to the dust, then the spirit returns to God who gave it. So what I'm just saying is there is a body and there is a spirit. So a person is made up of the two aspects. So we all know that a sin is separation from God. It is the absence of God. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that it is not the physical part of man that determines whether you are a sinner or you are a righteous person. It is not this physical part. It is not my physical body that determines. Why am I saying so? Because at new birth, what changes? It is my spirit. It is the nature of my spirit. Are you getting the sense? So my physical part does not change when I'm born again. It remains the same. If there are scars on my physical body, they don't change. They remain the same. They don't just disappear. They remain there, even if I'm born again. So the new birth happens in our spirit. That's when in our spirit we become new. We become a new man. So the old man, it is your old spirit. So the new man, it is the new spirit. So we need to be born again in order for us to be the children of God, which means this new birth, it happens in our spirit, not in our physical, not on our bodies. So what I'm just saying is, if the physical part of man does not determine whether that person is a sinner or a righteous person, it means it is the spirit that determines whether you are a sinner or you are a righteous person. So we know that when sin entered into this world, there is something that happened. Something happened. The physical part of man was affected. Are you getting? It started to degenerate. It started to be affected by diseases, and it started to become weak. We all know these things. And even the spirit of man, it also became corrupted, evil in other words, as a result of this separation from God. So what determines whether one is a sinner or is a righteous person? It is the state of the spirit, not the body. So the question is, if Jesus is 100% human, does that mean he inherited the fallen nature of Adam? So the answer is yes, if we are referring to his physical nature, the body. He inherited that body with all its limitations and weaknesses. He inherited the body of Adam, in other words, after the fall. Not just after the fall, but after 4,000 years of degradation. So we read in Galatians chapter 4, it says, Galatians chapter 4 verse 4, it says that, but when the fullness of time came, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law. So when is this fullness of time? It was after 4,000 years, after the fall of what? Of mankind. So the physical part of man have been degrading from the fall of Adam up until that time. So in other words, we are saying that when Christ was born, he was born with the weaknesses, with all the weaknesses that we also experience physically. He was made of a woman. Physically, he was just like us. This is the thing that we are seeing here. So even if you read John chapter 1 verse 14, he said, and the word became flesh. If you do remember those verses, which means Christ truly became one of us. He was just like us when it comes to his physical body. And also if we read Romans chapter 8 verse 3, it says that he was in the likeness of a sinful flesh, if you still remember those verses. So the second answer is also no. So when we are talking of his spirit, the answer is no. Christ was not born with a carnal, wicked, sinful spirit. He was not born with the need of new birth. We are all born with the need of new birth. We need new birth, which means our first birth, we inherited sin, which is separation from God. But new birth, but we are all born in need of new birth. But to Christ was born holy, he was born good, he was born righteous. So in other words, if he was born right, which means sin does not define humanity. Are we getting the point? Sin does not define humanity, or humanness is not determined by sin. Why? Because before sin entered into this world, before Adam sinned, he was fully 100% human before he sinned. So sin is not a necessary condition for humanness. So Jesus was fully human, 100% human, and yet without sin. Are we getting the point? He had a perfect spirit and still possesses a weakened, degraded body. Are we getting the point? So this is the other reason why Christ qualifies to be the second Adam. There are still verses that prove this point. If you read Luke chapter 1 verse 35, here, while Christ was still in Mary's womb, the angel referred to him as that holy thing. Even if you read 1 John chapter 3 verse 5, it says in him was no sin, which means he was pure, he was perfect. Even if you read 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 22, he says he did no sin, which is impossible if we possess his evil spirit. But to Christ, if Christ did no sin, which means his mind was right with God, this mind was good, was not evil, his spirit was good. This is the thing that we get here. So if one asks the question, if Jesus was 100% human, does that mean he inherited the fallen nature of Adam? It is yes, if we are talking of his flesh, the physical part of him. And also it is no when we are referring to his spirit. He was not born with a fallen spirit which need new birth. No. So sin is not a necessary condition for humanness. I think that's my answer for that question. Thank you. Have a good day.